Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features New Mutant Special Edition number 1, part 2 of my review and commentary on this issue. So the story so far, Loki's looking for revenge on the X-Men. He asks the Enchantress to go to Earth and bring the X-Men to Asgard. In particular, he's after Storm. So Enchantress grabs Aurora, but Aurora was looking after the New Mutants, so she takes them too in mistake for the X-Men. And what happens is she brings them to her castle, and Illyana, aka Magic, uses her power to help the New Mutants escape from the Enchantress, but he is unable to escape from the Enchantress herself. So Enchantress has actually taken out Illyana's dark side and created a dark, evil version of her dark child that is under her control. Meanwhile, the New Mutants are scattered across space and time in the 9 worlds, and here we pick up with Karma, who woke up in a desert. After her encounter with Farouk the Shadow King, she has been left in this obese state and she's in despair. But here she is in the middle of a desert, not dead yet, she thinks to herself, and then suddenly, Sacre-Cœur, she sees this huge sand worm, and it is chasing a young girl. The sand demon calls the girl, "For the love of Father Odin, save me." So Shan thinks to herself, I cannot refuse the child, but what am I to do? This bloated body is of no use, but if that creature has a brain, then perhaps with my mutant power I can possess it. So she does, and she manages, after a struggle, because the beast resists, she manages to triumph against it. I did it, I drove the beast away. So despite her bloated form, she's still able to use her mutant power and help, as it turns out, a young child in distress. And she thinks to herself, sweet little thing, she reminds me so much of my own brother and sister. And she asks the child, what are you doing in the desert? And the child explains, I'm lost, but now that I've found a friend, everything will be all right. You'll protect me, won't you, and take me home? And Shan says, I shall try. And she thinks to herself, sin enough to take my own life, because she was in despair, but I cannot abandon this innocent. She has placed her trust in me. I must do what I can for her, no matter how certain I am that both of us are doomed. And this is clever stuff from Claremont. Like, this is the thing to do always with somebody who's, lost interest in life, is give them something or someone to look after, to take care of, and it really brings them back into life again. So nice characterization going on here in respect of Karma, and we'll see how her story develops over the course of the second half of this 64-page special edition. Of course, I'd be remiss without moving on and saying a word about Arthur Adams and Terry Austin's art here. It's really well done. Great choreography of Shan's tussle with this sand demon. Really good look inside the sand demon's maw there. Excellent designs from Arthur Adams, and very clearly I would say we have Chris Claremont influenced by the recent, in terms of 1985-1984, David Lynch movie adaptation of Frank Herbert's Dune. So let's continue with the story. The way that Claremont has disposed it is that we will have little vignettes of where the various scattered New Mutants are and what's happening with them. So Douglas Ramsey, aka Cypher, he is a slave in the Mead Hall. There he is acting as a skivvy for this particular lord who looks like Popeye, and his underling looks like Bluto with olive oil there. So Bluto is getting some revenge on Douglas from an encounter they had earlier in the special edition. Douglas is tripped over and he knocks all of that slop or gruel or soup or whatever it is all over the Lord, and he gets ready with the whip in order to teach Douglas a lesson. But suddenly there is the arrival of Illyana in her dark child form. So that's a really great image there of Illyana bursting through the wall of the Mead Hall, and she's there with other armed warriors as well on horseback. Really, really great stuff. Now, the problem with this particular issue art-wise is the fact that there's tons and tons of detail in Arthur Adams' art, and just with the colouring technology of the time, 1985, Christy Shield just isn't really able to bring all the details out in the art. and she's trying to clarify images here using matte colors for Ileana and her two warriors, and then in the foreground here, Vikings here, putting them in blue and these in a kind of like a greeny blue there. So we really don't have the kind of colouring that's possible now with digital colouring, and it would be nice to see two things. Number one, an artist-sized edition, so that we could see all of the details of the black and white art in the original size, the kind of artist editions that IDW put out, and or a recolored version of this story using some of the possibilities made possible, or some of the what would I say, like details that would be made possible by modern day digital coloring, as long as it wasn't all dark and over saturated color, but keeping the palette light, but giving us more of those details that Arthur Adams has taken such time to draw in and Terry Austin to ink. So a nice big anchor image there of Ileana on her horse. Horse is very difficult to draw. Arthur Adams doing a really good job with the horses in this special edition. She's on the lookout for Doug, and he's in shock. Cripes, that's Ileana, but she looks so terrifying. What's happened to her? So he's got no martial powers, and he hides under the table. And Popeye here has had his throat cut, so he's done for. So how on earth is Doug going to get out of this? Well, he's not, unless he has some unexpected help from this figure tapping him on the shoulder, and that is Warlock. So Warlock is able to blast Ileana there, and creates this interesting looking craft. It looks like something out of Star Wars. Does anybody recognize what this is? And basically fly away with Doug, as Doug is looking down at Ileana and the burning mead hall. We were kidnapped by the Enchantress, he says. I bet she sent those demon critters after us. We haven't a prayer by ourselves, Locke. We've got to find the others and face those demons and their Wicked Witch of the West boss as a team. So what about the other New Mutants? Well, they're scattered all over. And now we pick up with Wolfsbane, who has had an encounter with this grey shape-changing wolf, and she's taken rather a fancy to him. Her heart is beating so fast, she thinks to herself, and how can my blood run hot and ice cold at once? And then the grey wolf kisses her on the neck, and she's enjoying it, but then she feels a pang of guilt. Her friends, what am I doing? I cannot dally here when those I care for need me. I want so much to stay, she thinks to herself, but I'm afraid, as she runs off in order to find the other New Mutants. So of course, Rain Sinclair was brought up by a puritanical pastor, and she's very repressed in terms of her emotions, and it's very interesting to play with that in terms of her alternate form being that of a wolf, and she is experiencing the pangs of love here for this shape-changing grey werewolf, and Claremont gets some good character moments out of that. But she also, of course, cares very much for her friends, so she's torn between her feelings for this new wolf man in her life and her old friends. And then we pick up with Sunspot. Now Sunspot, unhappy on Earth, has landed on his feet in Asgard, and he's now the bouncer at this particular tavern, and he's the favourite of all the nubile young ladies. And who turns up except, of course, the Warriors 3, Volstagg the Voluminous, Dashing Fandral, and Hogan the Grim. They are heroes, says one of the girls. So Roberto here has gotten a swollen head in his time as big man at the tavern, so he jumps up on the table. Big deal, so am I, he says. Looking for me, Tubbs? Zounds, says Volstagg in response. 'Tis not e'en a gnat, but a babe. Yo hombre, says Roberto, you think you're so tough? How about proving it? So Volstagg sets Sunspot a challenge. This is a good little comic sequence where basically the challenge is to, a simple one, lift the Lion of Asgard from the floor. So Sunspot says no problem, and there he is, like struggling to lift Volstagg, but he does it. Volstagg is delighted. Bravo, he says. Lad, they're truly a wonder. And everybody in the tavern is delighted. But poor old Roberto, he's broken his back nearly. I hurt myself real bad. He's pulled something in his back anyway. And Volstagg decides, okay, you're going to come with us. There's lots of celebrations going to happen. But the two other of the warriors, three, are more thoughtful. And Hogan says to Fandral, Fandral, hast noted yon lad's skin? 'Tis a common enough colour on Midgard, says Fandral. Hogan, thinkst thou he's immortal? But if so, how came he here? And Hogan replies, a good question, my friend, and a mystery we might do well to solve. So Volstagg is taking Roberto off for a big pub crawl, tavern crawl around Asgard. This is really great detail on this street, this kind of medieval-esque street that they're walking down, even to the level of the detail of the little kind of sewage drain there at the side of the house. I wonder, did Arthur Adams use some kind of reference for this particular panel? It's really good architecture that he's drawing in there. And you can see all the other panels, he's done nothing with the background, so he spent his allotted time on this particular panel here instead of the backgrounds of those ones. This is a nice couple of pages, a nice little sequence. Good acting good acting by the characters in Arthur Adams' drawings here on these pages. And then we switch. Very good top-down angle here on Cannonball, who's recovering from an act of bravery where he saved the Dwarf King's wife, the Queen of the Dwarves there. And it's taking some time for him to recover. And he's impatient with all of that. And then after time passes, he's out of the bed and in front of the roaring fire. Great hatching and cross-hatching there, and details in Terry Austin's inks. And this is the point I'd like to say. There are two big periods of influence that Terry Austin has had in respect of his inking. Number one, his pairing with John Byrne on Uncanny X-Men, and number two, in my opinion, his pairing with Arthur Adams on the Uncanny X-Men annuals, as well as the New Mutant Special Edition, because you can see, well, what he was getting was very detailed hatching and hatching in Arthur Adams' art, but the way that he deals with it and whatever tools he was using at the time in the mid-80s, different from what he did with John Byrne's pencils, which would have been of a different kind to Arthur Adams some years earlier. And so, like I'm saying, I think there's two periods in which Terry Austin had big influence on other inkers and also the style of art that became popular with the likes of Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee, and even Eric Larson at the end of the 80s and into the early 90s. And this is one of them here. A very influential comic, New Mutant Special Edition. Many artists reference it as one that really made a mark on them. And let's get back to the story then. So the Dwarf King tells Sam that their situation is complicated by the fact that Odin has gone missing. My people are beset with dark elves, those who followed a cursed Malekith, seeking to conquer us so that we with our metalworking skills might forge them the weapons needed to overthrow the gods. I've little love for Asgard. It wouldn't break my heart to see those proud Aesir humbled, but by my hearthfire runes, I'll die before I see my race enslaved. I fear, my boy, thee and thine have stumbled headlong into a bear pit. And then suddenly there is something going on at the cavern wall. This is really well done in the art, and it turns out to be a transformed magma. And she says to them, from this moment to the end of time shalt thou dwell in Niflheim amongst the dead, because she was corrupted by dark elves earlier in the special edition. So Sam leaps into action. So even though he's recovering from wounds sustained while saving the Dwarf Queen, he bravely leaps into action, uses his blasting field to cover the dwarves from the molten magma. And then this is a great panel here. We see I really like the kind of the use of the blacks here in order to render in the top of the ground with the magma shooting up out of it. It's really, really well done. Sam thinking that Magma must be under some sort of spell. He's right about that. And what happens here, this is a weird little bit where the Dwarf King grabs a fire extinguisher, a very modern looking fire extinguisher from a press in the wall, and uses it to extinguish Magma, while Sam grabs a table and uses it to mop up the trolls that came along as well, and basically push them into a cave and then bring about a rock fall so that they're stuck inside the cave. And the Dwarf King sums up and says, "That's twice thou hast placed us in thy debt, Sam. It's getting to be a habit." So the Dwarf King says, "Bind the fire elf with cold iron. She'll be no threat to us then." Sam asks that she not be hurt because she's one of his missing teammates, and she's enraged there. Look at all the detail here with all of the dwarves, but Kirsty Shield is only able to render them all in light blue so that we have our focus here on this enraged picture of Magma. And the Dwarf King says to Sam as he slaps him on the back, his injured back, where he was speared earlier in the issue, "Despair not, lad. We dwarves are not without fell magics ourselves." Fell means dangerous. "Though returning thy friend to her mortal seeming may be beyond our ability, we can at least restore her true nature, so that in thought and feeling she will once more be the lass she was. Till then, thanks to thee, we've a victory to celebrate. What say thee to that?" Sam here thinks, if Amara and me are any indication of what's happening to the others, we're playing a bum hand. Looking the way she does, how can Amara even live on Earth? What do we do if she has to stay behind, and how the heck are we supposed to rescue Aurora? I don't even know where she is. So much is at stake, only I don't know what to do. The kids look to me and Danny to lead them, but she ain't here, and he's kind of losing heart a bit. I want Professor Xavier or Etri, the Dwarf King, or anybody to tell me what to do, to take the load off my shoulders, but they can't. So in time, Sam will grow into that leader's role, particularly under the pen of Fabian Nicieza on X-Force. But meanwhile, back in the present of 1985, let's take a look at Mirage. That's a great panel there with the winged horses, the Valkyrie as they are, and Danny really enjoying her new role as one of the Valkyrie, though she doesn't 100% understand what that exactly means. She sees some armed warriors, male warriors on the ground, and she looks to recruit them. Our search flights have covered a lot of ground these past weeks, but we haven't crossed any mutants trail. And then she's pulled up by Mist. "Let them be, Danielle, they can be no help to us." Oh, she was going to ask them for if they'd seen any of the New Mutants, but they right away afraid of the women on the horseback, and Mist and the others won't answer Danny's questions about what's going on. They deliberately ignored me, she thinks. This is the Eyrie where they live. They've been so kind and generous, the best friends a body could wish for. Why all of a sudden are they hiding things from me, she thinks. She puts Brightwind, that's the name of her horse, winged horse, in the stables. Look at all the great work there in Arthur Adams' art. Here to this top-down angle on the huge doorway entrance to the Eyrie. She's thinking, I could be imagining things. This may have nothing to do with me. After all, I don't really belong here. I'm just a guest. Sooner or later, I'll have to go home. But she also thinks it'll break my heart to leave Brightwind. So she listens at a door. There's a council of the Valkyrie, and they're arguing about her, about Danny. "She should not even be in our keep, Mist," says one of the Valkyrie, "much less ride on one of our sacred horses." But here is why Danny is being allowed into their sisterhood. "Thou knowest as well as I, Axe," says Mist, "that our winged brethren choose their own champions. It matters not from where or whence the child came. She has been truly chosen, she must be told." "Suppose, Miss," says one of the other Valkyrie, "she doth not comprehend the honour done her, suppose she denies it?" And here is something that would cast a long shadow over Danny, even after the New Mutant Special Edition and Uncanny X-Men Annual number 9. "'Tis too late for that. The Norns, those ancient fates, have entwined Danielle's life strand with ours. It remains only for the bond to be sealed in blood. So Dany's shocked and she rides off on Brightwind from the Eyrie. I don't know what they have in mind, but no way will I be a part of it. And then we pick up with Karma. And look, she's lost some weight. Time has passed. How long have we wandered? Weeks, she thinks. Months. I've lost track. I hope this is the right direction. As I understand it, Ileana can cast people through time as well as space. For all I know, I've landed long before we were abducted to Asgard, or ages after the mutants. Perhaps even the world had been worn away to nothing. And then she sees some dust and she sees this desert lizard and she uses her power to capture it and kill it because she has to feed herself and the child that she's rescued. For her sake, much as I wish differently, I must survive. So she's still in despair about what's become of her, her obesity, but she's lost some weight from earlier. Sunspot, this is the life. He's enjoying himself. He's enjoying the attention and adulation of the women of Asgard. Asgard's my fondest dream come true, he thinks, except my friends aren't by my side to share it. I should be out searching for them, but I don't know where to start. I told the Warriors 3, if anyone can find the mutants, it's them. So the Warriors 3 are on the case, but then who comes into the tavern except for Darkchild? So Bobby's shocked. Why are you dressed like that, he asks. What do you want? And look at that for an evil laugh. And look at the fangs on her as well. The dummy, she says. And then she uses her power to grab his spirit and encase him in this warrior army. And she says, encased in this suit of eldritch armor, thou art now as much the Enchantress's eager, dutiful slave as I. Isn't that nice? Well, let's continue and see what's happening with the other New Mutants. Let's pick up with Cannonball. But look who's arrived at the realm of the dwarves. It's Loki, and he's brought Storm with him. And she is now wearing this particular Asgardian or Aesir warrior's costume. And Loki says, he says here, it is not yet meet for lesser dwarvish eyes to see thee as thou truly art. Meet means fitting. Therefore I shall disguise thee with Freya's enchanted cloak of feathers in the shape and seeming of a falcon. So she's transformed into this falcon, but she's still got her white mohawk. Watch, my pretty, says Loki. Listen and learn. Come to love this realm with all thy noble heart, the better to help me rule it. So Loki's taken a fancy to Storm, fancies her to be his queen as ruler of Asgard and the Nine Realms. So back with Sam. Sam is comforting Amara there in her transformed kind of dark fairy state. And she says to him, you don't understand. The way I am feels right and natural. My old form, the life I led, seems like a dream. Gossamer wisps of memory that whirl farther out of reach with every passing second. How can I ever become myself again, Sam, if I forget who and what that self was? And at this point, Loki arrives for an audience with Eitri, the king of the dwarves. Lots and lots of detail there. Eitri up on his throne, drinking his ale. All the dwarves there at their tables getting served their ale. Lots and lots of detail. Really good stuff. So Loki says he wants a commission, blacksmith, and that's the way that Loki always did it in the Icelandic and Norse sagas. He'd always go to the dwarves with some project for them to fulfill for him. A commission blacksmith, a hammer, the equal of Mjolnir and Stormbreaker. Stormbreaker was Beta Ray Bill's hammer for Asgard's new thunder god. And what, pray tell, hath happened to the old one? Asks the king. Beta Ray Bill hath returned to his own people, and my brother Thor's heart hath e'er belonged as much to Midgard as the Golden Realm. But what have we here? So Loki spots Cannonball, mayhap a spy. The king covers for Cannonball an idiot nephew, my lord, whose dam his mother, dallied o'ermuch with one of thou Aesir, hence his unnatural stature. So Loki there is thinking, look at the Storm Falcon as well. I mislike skulkers. He's a skulker himself. I should close his prying eyes forever. But since thy daughter seems to care for him, I shall graciously stay my wrath. Look at him there. He's thinking so cunningly that now he's going to be getting a favor from the Dwarf King. There, I've done thee a kindness. Wilt return my favor? Aye, says the Dwarf King, and it looks like he's not happy about it. So Loki magics himself away. Splendid, he says, and basically picking up the pieces. That was a magic falcon, but Freya's cloak of transformation, says one of the dwarves, is golden. So too should be the bird. Never have I seen such strange colouring. Black feathers, a white crest, blue eyes. Could that have been Aurora? Says Sam. Is she Loki's prisoner? If so, lad, thou hast indeed a task before thee, says the Dwarf King. And Sam says, I'm real sorry about all of this. The Dwarf King is resolute. This time, though, it'll cost Loki dear, for nobody threatens me and mine in my own hole before my throne. Whatever aid thou dost require in thine enterprise, Sam, to save thy friend is thine. So Sam has the aid of the dwarves, everything they can do in order to get the other New Mutants back. Speaking of which, Wolfsbane, it's a really nice panel here of, as it turns out, the Grey Wolf, and he's howling, full moon there in the background, but it is because he's lonely and he missed rain. And so she's a little bit charmed, really. I would not lie, he says. Come home, little one. And she's all confused, crying there. I'm so confused. If what we feel is true love, why must we deny it? And who turns up just at the wrong moment except for Illyana, and she grabs Rain's spirit and encases her in that warrior's armor. And her lover is distraught, calling after her. Then we're back with Claremont. Look, she's lost loads of weight. So that's a great weight loss program. Basically go to the desert for months on end and survive in it, and you'll lose like basically 5 times your body weight, it seems, in the case of Shan. So, you know, in the desert, you're going to be on the lookout for water all the time. A stream, green grass, growing things, life. Sate un miracla, she exclaims. Saints be praised, child. We've reached the end of the desert. So they're there, and something is swooshing in the air. And what is it? It is Warlock and Doug. He releases Doug, and Doug and Shan embrace, and everybody's delighted. So we get a little bit of explanations. Doug sees that Shan got skinny. An eternity lost on that wasteland will do that, mon ami, she says. To change you so much, though? Query, contact with familiar life signs. So Warlock is sensing something in the background. Must have taken months. Doug and Shan are immersed in their conversation. Must have taken months, but Locke and I have been here hardly more than a week. So she was right about Illyana sending them not just across space but time too. So she was sent to that desert before the New Mutants were actually freed from Enchantress's prison. And you shouldn't think about that too much, otherwise your head will melt. So she she sees here, as I feared, then Illyana did hurl us all through time. I'd given up and would have surely perished if not for Douglas, my companion. She's gone. Where did this white string come from? What does it mean? So the little girl is gone, but there's a white string wrapped around her index finger in the girl's stead. Now, Warlock was right. Alarm, friends. It is her once friend Illyana. She's found us as she said she would. Here we go. We've got a great anchor image there of Illyana and all those warriors with her, including, of course, Roberto and Rain, who are standing either side of her. And she explains the significance of the white thread. Your string, Shan, is the sign of the 3 Norns, Urd, Skuld, and Verdandi, fate being a necessity, the eternal fates who rule the lives of all within the Golden Realm. Evidently they took pity on thee. Our malefic mistress, the Enchantress, would not have been so generous. I'm sent to bring you to her. But Shan is going to resist there. And also Warlock grabs Douglas and now creates this battle suit around him. We shall fight our once friends together. Affirmative. Sounds great to me, partner, says Douglas. And then just at the right time, Cannonball and Magma arrive for the fight. Look at all the detail there in Arthur Adams' art, but it's just not showing up so very well with the matte colors. So he slams into one of the horses, and also who arrives at just the right time, except for Danny and Brightwind. Oh no, that demon's got the drop on her. So she shoots at the demon, who is Ileana. Great detail there of the arrows striking through the chainmail. And Danny recognizes at the last minute, Ileana, by my ancestors, what have I done? But of course, Ileana isn't going to be killed by arrows like that. Console thyself, chief, she says. The weapon doth not exist which can do this form harm. A pity that neither is there one able to safeguard thee from me. Wherefore thy proud boast now, Karma. So looks like Karma's about to get grabbed here by a demon behind her, and just at that point, Warlock and Douglas deal with it, slam it into the ground. So Karma escapes, and now we have a face-off. We have a face-off between Danny on the one hand, Shan and Warlock and Douglas on the other, on the one hand, and on the other, Ileana. She plucks those arrows out of her chest. Sunspot and Rain over there. And elsewhere, the Enchantress is watching. Impossible. She's mortal and not of the ancient blood, yet she rides one of the sacred herd, though she suspects it not. Danielle Moonstar hath joined the Valkyrior. She is one of Odin's choosers of the slain, a Valkyrie. So she uses her enchantment to connect with Ileana, that Ileana should, or one of the warriors there, that the warrior should kill Danny, but Danny is saved by Karma, and Karma's action explodes Enchantress's scrying crystal. And look at all the detail there for the explosion. Such fine detail from Terry Austin in the inks. Really, really good stuff. And again, it would show up so much nicer if we had an artist edition. So Enchantress is thwarted but not thoroughly defeated. Has my demon been slain, she asks. No matter. So long as I have her body in my dungeon, she's no threat. 10,000 curses beyond that golden-skinned harlot's head. What did she do? What power did she manifest? The wench's ordeal on the desert served her well, toughening her in both flesh and spirit. She's most formidable foe. Another, like the newborn Valkyrie, I must slay the instant I see her. So she hasn't got any concerns whatsoever about poor old Warlock and Doug whatsoever. The next morning, we get a top-down shot of the Enchantress in her bed being woken up by one of her trolls. But look here in the detail. Like, if you have this at home yourself, or you can watch this video in high definition, Enchantress is there and there's somebody beside her, and the body looks dead. The mouth is open, the eyes staring. It's kind of like a little grim detail. Like, if you're not looking for it, you don't see it. And it comes out in what Enchantress is going to say in the next panel. So the troll tells her, thy demon horde returning triumphant. So it would appear, she says, looking down from her bedroom window, tidy my bedchamber, Grovig. And the implication is tidy it and take out the dead body from her bed, while I dress to greet them. Then immolate thyself for entering without permission. So that gives us a sense of the Enchantress's character on a lot of different levels. So anyway, she comes down, she's dressed, and she is sighing about the troll. Perhaps I shall replace my cretinous trolls with these children. And should the X-Men's power prove in time the equal of Loki's? Ha! Would not that be a delightful irony? So she's planning a scheme against Loki too, to basically make herself the queen of the Golden Realm. Guess again which. So the New Mutants, it was all a ruse. The joke's on you. Surprise, fiend, says Magma. So they've all been liberated, including Ileana there as well. This is a nice anchor image of everyone. And now we're going to get a battle. This is our climactic battle between the New Mutants and Enchantress. She abducted them in the first act, and now she's going to get trashed by them in the last act. So Roberto here punching her in the jaw. And for the record, bruja, I think that means ugly in Portuguese. If it's the X-Men you want, you've made a big mistake. We are the New Mutants. So Enchantress fights back. Tell Helebrat they shall be greeting her soon in Niflheim. But another great panel here. The Enchantress is getting away, says Doug. And Danny says, we can't chase her. We're too busy fighting her goons. There's no end to this mob, she thinks. I need some way of evening the odds. From the trolls' minds, Mirage, that's Danny, pulls the image of what they fear most and manifests it to most impressive effect. So this is a Mirage of Odin, and he doesn't have his eye patch on, so you can see his empty eye socket there, and that frightens the trolls. The few trolls that stand their ground are speedily dispatched. So Douglas, really enjoying himself. This is great, he exclaims. It's the kind of adventure I always dreamed of. And now we get little cultural references of the mid-80s. Indiana Jones, Luke Skywalker and Prince Valiant all rolled into one. But Illyana's body, her actual body, needs to be reclaimed. So Karma uses her power to control Darkchild, and they're walking down the steps into the dungeon where Darkchild's human body is, and Karma is struggling. The demon's essence is so foul, so utterly evil. My mental link between us sickens me, but I must maintain it. This wayward piece of Illyana's soul must be returned to her body. Great inking here of the textures of the dungeon walls, and nice perspective work on the spiral staircase down to the dungeon. So there's a little challenge before getting to the dungeon properly. There's a troll there that is guarding the entrance to the dungeon. So Karma uses her power to get Darkchild to attack the troll, but meanwhile she's unaware of what's creeping up behind her, and then she acts out of instinct. No, I reacted without thinking. The Illyana demon's evil is affecting me. I'm starting to act like her. Thank heaven I only wounded him. So she cuts him just through the side there. And then she finds Illyana, her human body, chained up against the wall, and she has had a bruising time. And Illyana really just has had a bad time entirely, being prisoner in Belasco's realm for 7 years, and the implication being abused there, and being abused in the Enchantress's dungeon as well. So really a hard time she's had under Claremont's pen. But in any case, Karma uses her power to rebond the dark spirit of Illyana with her, and that restores her body. And then the Enchantress attacks. The Enchantress attacks. The oblivion thou dost crave shall be thine in death. So let's see how this pans out. Just at that moment, Illyana and Karma's team members arrive, cannonball punching through the walls of the dungeon. Leave them alone, witch, exclaims Danny. We've got to throw her off balance, she thinks, so she can't zap us with any spells. Let's take a look at what she's most afraid of, and that is Surtur. Okay, one of the bringers of Ragnarok. So that distracts the Enchantress, and then Karma uses her power to enslave the Enchantress. No, curse you, no, protests the Enchantress. Try as hard as thou like. You'll not hold me long. She doesn't have to, says Illyana. You can see her eyes narrowed there, one side of her face all in shadow. Karma, make her remove all the arcane wards around her castle that prevent me from teleporting. So this is light and dark united in Illyana, and that's when she's strongest. And we'll blow this lousy joint. So they teleport to Limbo, the magical domain where I rule, says Illyana. And who's there to greet her except for her servant, Sim? So we get a good look at him based on Dave Sim's character, Cerebus. So a little bit of a joke there by Claremont. A well-meaning joke. And here we have Illyana making Enchantress prisoner. These manacles aren't as entertaining as your wall. She's being very ironic, but they serve the same purpose so long as you wear them. You're quite powerless. I could kill you now, but I'm not that forgiving. Instead, I'll leave you to Sim's tender mercies. He's my pet demon. I truly believe you two are made for each other. But then she says she isn't to be physically harmed, Sim. And then we see her completely in shadow, except for her hair and top. Beyond that, use your imagination. So what is Sim going to do with Enchantress? Well, he's got an appetite for whatever he's going to do. Yum, he says. Break out the champagne, says Illyana. We win. But there are problems here. We're coming up to the last page. Easy for you to say, Illyana. There it's still human, says Magma. No fooling, Karma. Volstagg made the old you look puny. And then we've got a little joke here where Warlock is taking on the form of Gumby and he's mistaking Brightwind for Pokey. What next? We go home? How dull, boring, yuck, thinks Doug, who enjoyed his adventure. So last page now, page 64. No ads in this comic except for house ads on the inside covers. We got unfinished business, Illyana. We're all safe, but Aurora ain't. She's Loki's prisoner. I don't know what he intends, but since he's the local god of evil, you all can bet it won't be nice. So Illyana says, okay, we teleport to Earth, we call the X-Men. And Roberto isn't happy about that. Why? We're already here. We've proven our worth and skill. Why can't we rescue Storm? Moreover, who said we want to go home? I certainly don't. So Cannonball is taken by surprise. Bobby, you crazy? Perhaps, but I don't care. I was happy in Asgard. I'm not on Earth, he says. What future do we have? What is there to ever hope for in a world that hates us more and more each day? I don't mind risking my life, Sam, but I'd like it to mean something. In Asgard, I believe it will. So he's found a home in Asgard. He likes it there. Look at this, though. You've got Warlock with his little radar up, and he is scanning around Limbo. He's obviously found something that interests him in Limbo that he's tuned into. Interesting, that little detail there in the background. And then we have like where all the New Mutants are. They've got reasons to stay there. Danny and Brightwind, Rain and her grey wolf lover, and also Magma. I'm of the fairy folk, Sam. There's no place for me on Earth. Now Sam isn't happy. I don't believe my ears, he says. You're all serious. Look, this ain't the time or place to argue. We'll talk about it later, okay? The important thing is saving Aurora. So Enchantress mocks them. It's a fool's quest. You're no match for Loki. And Sunspot says, we'll beat him. Loki started this, says Danny, but whatever it costs, whatever it takes, we'll finish it. So off they go. They teleport. Magic teleports them back to Asgard to take on Loki and rescue Storm. And meanwhile, we've got Sim there with all those little love hearts in respect of Enchantress. So the implications of that, well, are they humorous or are they dark? To be concluded in X-Men Annual number 9, There's No Place Like Home. Now you'll already find, if you're interested in having a review and commentary on X-Men Annual number 9, you'll find a review of that already in the back catalogue of the channel. So do enjoy that after watching this review and commentary. We've got a house ad here for the Long Shot miniseries by Ann Nocenti and Arthur Adams. So Arthur Adams was working on this, finishing this off at the same time he was working on the New Mutant Special Edition. He was a very busy man in 1984, 1985. Well, I do hope that you enjoyed my review and commentary on New Mutants Special Edition number 1. Let me know your thoughts on this, part 2 of my review, in the comments section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like the video on YouTube and share it too. It really helps the channel. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.